What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, we're at the midway point of May. We are less than a month away from the World Cup, and of course, less than a month away to seeing Paraguay in their first World Cup in 16 years. We're already at that sub 30 countdown, basically. Not just obviously all of us who support Paraguay, but all the 47 countries that will be participating in this World Cup. And obviously, we're in towards the end of the domestic season, or at least the break of a domestic season, because obviously Europe is going to come to a close this month with all the competitions coming to an end. Obviously, South America still has to decide some stuff from a league perspective. Then we have Libertadores and Sudamericana, which will take a break after the group stage. And then it's full on World Cup, guys. I'm excited, honestly. Ralph, I see that Paraguay shirt from France 98 right there. It always makes me excited to see that because it's like, yeah, the fact that Paraguay are going to be in the World Cup very, very soon. And, obviously we had the reports of, teams already announcing their full squads. I even saw yesterday France, one of the favorites to win the World Cup. They announced their 23-man squad, 26-man squad yesterday. Some other countries are set to officialize them in the next few days. Obviously, Paraguay is set to officialize theirs very soon. We reportedly have 55 names already. We can even discuss that in terms of what some names we see that could make a final push and all that. But I gotta go to Fede first on this one because obviously we are speaking on the week of Independence Day. Yesterday was Independence Day in Paraguay, 215 years as a sovereign state. Today's also Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the Paraguayan mothers out there, especially mine, and obviously Ralph, your Paraguayan wife, and Fede, of course, your Paraguayan family as well. So shout out, and Maria, of course. Maria is, of course, we always want to send a shout out to her for always supporting us, and of course being a Paraguayan mother as well. But Pele, I mean, obviously with this week being full on, I guess, party mood with obviously Independence Day, with obviously Olimpia winning the league title a couple weeks ago. That's obviously a big celebration for the Olimpia fans. Mother's Day today. But yeah, in about less than a month's time, it's going to be full on Paraguay national team for the World Cup. It's a big event, and I'm curious to see what you've been feeling. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of ads. We've been seeing a lot of like just it's this sort of marketing towards the World Cup from all fronts, and I think it's beautiful to see because I think obviously people are going to get excited. It's a confidence boost for the country to obviously see them participate in a World Cup, and obviously anyone that's in the World Cup is going to feel that optimistic, no matter if you're a favorite or an underdog. But yeah, I wanted to know what your thoughts on what's going on over there in the country. Is it ready, or are we still gotta wait a few more weeks, because you know how last minute Paraguayans are when it comes to even a World Cup, they have to be last minute.
People are making plans. Great to be here once more, Roberto. Great to see you. Great to see Raf. Great to hear from everybody. Always here in Guarani Vision. Happy Independence Day to our beautiful Paraguay, country of heroes, of full of history, full of many good football players. Also, happy Mother's Day to those women that listen to our show, that give life to our country, that gave life to our country in a certain important time in that big war and established the country as we know it nowadays. Also, mothers were so important back then, are still so important in the culture in Paraguay. And, just talking about football, the focus has totally shifted, right? I mean, after Olympia being crowned a week ago, even though we still have Sudamericana and very important Libertadores games coming up in these next 2 weeks, I say the mood has shifted. The focus has shifted. Also, everybody's starting to talk about the World Cup. We know that the coaching staff has been working really hard these last couple of months. The FA also, and you're even seeing it now. You go to the supermarket and all the brands, they all have the soccer players on everything you buy. The World Cup is all around you here. You're starting to see flags on the cars. You're starting to feel that World Cup vibe, and it's beautiful. I love it. I'm just happy to be alive, just to make it 4 more years again, and to be able to live it, and especially since we've actually been waiting for so long to see our country, to see Paraguay there again competing. So it feels special. Everybody's making plans. I'm hearing fan fest. I'm hearing people that are going to get together in different places. So yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that and talk about this 55 roster. There's 55 different players that we got out of this pre-list, I would say, because it needs to come down to 35 and then it needs to come down to 26, which is the final list. That's the list that I actually want to talk about. That's the list that I got my eye on because that's the hardest list to really come down to.
It is really the list that everyone is really looking forward to or dreading, Ralph, basically, because like of course those that will make the final 26-man squad will feel the dream of a lifetime, basically, that they'll be all playing in their first ever World Cup. But unfortunately for some of those, so obviously you do the math here, it's 55 names right now and 26 go in. So 29 of those names will not be able to go to the World Cup. So 29 dreams are going to be basically destroyed. I mean, I hate using that word, but broken, whatever, sort of thing. In like the next couple of weeks, it's one of the hardest decisions that Gustavo Alfaro will have to make as a Paraguay coach, as a Paraguay coach ever since he took charge 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Hi to everybody watching, listening. Happy Independence Day and happy Mother's Day to everybody with Paraguayan roots. I mean, it's for Gustavo Alfaro. This is the big decision, right? And whatever he does, there will be controversy. There will be, you know, what ifs because unless Paraguay win the World Cup, there's always going to be a what if. It's going to be tough. We're in this time, I think, where it's such an important moment at the end of the season for a lot of the players. Brighton's still fighting for Europe, for example, and Diego Gomez can't be part of it because he's been injured. But we just saw his teammate misses out on the World Cup, Mitoma, with injury. And so we're at this time where those little injuries in inverted commas could actually mean you miss out on the World Cup. So that's really the crucial time. I mean, we, we we'll see the list almost work itself out in some ways because of that. We're talking about players like who might go into central midfield, and because there's not a lot of cover for Cuba, so that's also been maybe molded by injuries and that kind of thing. So it's a very tense moment because of those people that are definitely on the border. That we have some obvious names that are in there. I read a preview that didn't include Julio and Enciso as the main player, and I was like, guys, he's probably number one on my list right now. Well, with Gustavo Gomez on my Alderete, but there's there's I think there's definitely that core team that we know we'll expect to see, and it's just those fringe players. Will they get their chance, and will they not? And only time will tell. But time's ticking away because we're really close to that announcement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think 20 or so names are already confirmed for sure, unless obviously something bad happens to them. And then it's just like filling out those fringe players, like you said, Ralph, those guys who probably won't be key players. I mean, when you think about the three goalkeepers being the ones that for sure will be the ones going to the World Cup as opposed to, defense, midfield, and forward up for debate, I think that shows that, like, guys, I think we have an idea of what's going to happen. But no, I'm excited for that. Again, we'll obviously keep tabs of what's going on for that. When we do get the official announcement, we'll obviously react to it as we always do for anything Paraguay national team news related. So we'll keep an eye on that. But obviously, we have to keep an eye on what's going on in the Libertadores and the Sudamericana because, like you said, even though the Paraguayan league is finished and the Olimpia are champions of the Apertura, we still have a lot of competitions to go to. And we'll start with the Sudamericana. We'll start with Olimpia because obviously they are coming off, trying to, you know, really help themselves basically qualify, I would say, because, they're coming off a really good last minute win against Barraca Central. It was a tight game. Obviously, they conceded early, but then it was obviously Fernando Cardoso and Alex Franco scoring in the last minute to help them get a really good win against Barraca Central over there in Argentina. But now they host Vasco. Now they host Vasco da Gama, the team that did beat them, the only team to have beaten them in the group stage so far. So I gotta say, I'll go to Ralph on this one first. I gotta say, if they're able to get this win against Vasco, I think that should be enough for them to qualify because as you look at the gap, them and Vasco have 7 points, so it's only the goal difference that separates them. They have the same record. It's just the 3 goals that Vasco scored against Olimpia that separates them. But I think if they are able to get this win, and they play Alex Italiano the following week at the Defensores, so it feels like double match point for them. That if they're able to snatch a win in one of those 2 games, that should be enough for them to qualify um, either to the round of 16 or to the knockout round playoffs. But I think ultimately, if they do beat Vasco, that should be enough for them to advance to the round of 16, which would be obviously a big plus for them to not deal with the extra game, and obviously from a monetary perspective as well.
Yeah, it's a big game that Olympia need to try and find a way to motivate themselves. It sounds strange, right? Motivate yourself to qualify. But what we've seen is since the game against Cerro, the abandoned Super Clásico, they've only won once, and it was against Barracas. And in part that's been because they had the very difficult trip to Brazil to Vasco, which they lost 3-0. And then with the league, they were going to win the league, just by getting a few points together, which they did. Then they won the league, so they didn't need to win their last league match. They're playing right now. I think they're tying as we're speaking, and they were winning. They've just dropped the lead. So they're almost in a bit of that hangover moment where they've done the big push, they've won the championship, and now they've got to try and get themselves up again for this important qualifier. I mean, I thought the game against Barracas, they really did well. They really took the game to them. Similar to as if they're playing the home leg. In the home leg, they took the game to Barracas and couldn't score. This time, maybe the game got a bit more open, but it worked in their favor. What what we'll see against Vasco is I guess has Vitamina Sanchez learned from that 3-0 defeat? Are there things he can take away? Are there little changes he can make to try and make the difference and pick up that win? What what I suppose has been maybe the question mark for me is going up front. Sometimes he's trying to play Lescano, Benitez, Alcaraz, who are all very, let's say, like small, fast, exciting forwards. Is he going to do that, or does he want to put in someone with a bit more physical presence up there, like a Sebastian Ferreira? So that's maybe one of my question marks is how he approaches the start of the game against Vasco. Because if he does go with three small forwards, I'm gonna say is he's looking to maybe try and play on the counter attack, which would be an interesting tactic starting from home. But I think the big thing is to try and find that motivation to try and start getting back in that winning rhythm because they were in the rhythm earlier in the season, and this is why they're champions because they were just finding ways to win games. Like whatever happens, they maybe play. Someone might play well, someone might not play well, but as a team, they would just find the way to get over the line and get the result. And so that's the like spark they need for this one against Vasco. Because like you say, they're both locked on points, 7 points at the top of the table. If they get the win, that pretty much puts them in the driving seat with that final game also at home to Audax Italiano.
Hopefully they can get this one right. Olympia just can't relax just yet after winning the Paraguayan league. They really need to focus on the Sudamericana. The job is not done there. It's a very demanding competition because only the first team gets to qualify directly. So nobody's aiming for that second spot. So these are the kind of games that you need to win. You already lost against this team in Brazil, so try to aim for a revenge. Even especially because of the way they lost, right? They looked really scrappy in that second half, and Vasco really took over that game, and it was a 3-0, probably the worst game of the semester. So probably players are looking at that game and saying and looking at each other in that locker room saying, this is the game we need to get back, guys. I mean, this is the only game that has made us look bad during the whole semester. Then we've been a really solid team. I'm really looking forward to this game. It could be the last big game of the semester for Olympia. They're aiming to win at home. So show that they are the Paraguayan champion and get back to that good form that Ralph was talking about, those first games, that first part of the year, because I've seen this team kind of get tired or even maybe relaxed. I think certain players are already seeing the exit door because they're thinking, I'm not going to make it to the second semester with this coach. I haven't done enough with the team. So I think we're going to see the starting team now because since Olympia was already crowned a champion, they've been able to pretty much rotate players. Adriano Alcaraz will probably be the forward. Richard Sanchez has been resting, so he'll probably be in that midfield with Richard Ortiz. So he's gonna put the best team out there possible. The wingers are probably, my doubts right now because Ruben Lescano is not producing that much. Romeo Benitez might be the spark out there, but you look at Leguizamón, he hasn't brought enough to this team in this semester. He's been injured in and out of the team. So I'm thinking, because of the way this team plays, they really need their wingers to be in top shape. And I don't see that right now. That's my concern going into this game against Vasco when you need to attack because Olympia is going to try to win it. So I have my doubts on this game, but hopefully Olympia can do it at home and not depend on that last game in this group.
Do you think they do it then, Fede?
I think they're going to do it somehow. I think they're going to get revenge. I think they're going to show their best stuff. I think the players have been focusing in this game for enough days. They've been preparing this match, and I think they're going to get the win. I think they're going to get the revenge on Vasco da Gama, and they're going to win it by 2 goals even.
Ralph?
I don't know if I'm as gung ho as Fede that goes with a 2 goal win against a Brazilian side. Um, but I can see them getting a result. I can see them winning because of what we saw earlier in the season. That kind of mentality of getting it done, of doing something when not necessarily you're playing everything is playing to the tactical plan or everything is going perfect, but just having, especially with Richard Ortiz and maybe Raul Cáceres, he's been really important as well of that mentality and getting things over the line. But for me, if it's a win, I'm leaning more towards a draw, if I'm honest, guys. But if I was going to go for a win, I'd be like a 1 goal, 1-0. They managed to see it out. Oh, no, no, wait, a 2-1 because Olympia they don't mind conceding a goal, but a 2-1 and they get it over the line. That's what my hope is for this team that they can do it. I'm saying that with
Also,
a Cerro shirt behind me, but I hope they can do it.
don't worry, we'll mention Cedro in a bit after this, but no, I'll say 1-1. I think Vasco are still a really tricky side, and as much as Olympia feel like they need that confidence boost, I think it's going to be difficult. And I think it's going to go to the last day. I think Odex Italiano might be the one that ultimately decides if they go through. The only other team to play in the Copa Sudamericana is, of course, Recoleta, who again continue to surprise and surprise a lot of people. They still have not lost a single game. But that being said, guys, still have not won a single game. They tied Santos over there in the Estadio Rio Parapiti, obviously a big event. Neymar scoring, but then of course it was 4 minutes from time, Fernando Galeano scoring. But now comes the tough question, and I'll go to Ralph on this one. Now they got to go to Cuenca. They got to go to Ecuador to snatch something because, of course, as you look here in the group, it's all separated by 1 point. So Sorrento with 6, Cuenca with 5, Recoleta with 4, and Santos with 3. Recoleta and Santos, the only two teams not to win a single game. So it's basically going to go down to whoever blinks first, honestly. Like, if Recoleta do get something there and Cuenca, that puts them all the way to the top, assuming that San Lorenzo and Santos, well, I mean, if Santos win that game, then obviously that means those two go down. So it's basically interchangeable either way. But I feel like that missed opportunity to not get any wins at home of those 3 games, I think that might come back to bite them. But again, Recoleta have surprised so many people so far. Can they do another surprise and just barely make it somewhere? We don't know where, but somewhere.
Yeah, it's been a crazy story when they got that late goal against Santos, and you're like, wow, they've tied again, like 4 straight ties. It's giving me 2011 Copa America vibes from Paraguay when they just drew every game, got to the final. You never know. I mean, with Cuenca's at altitude, but it's not like huge altitude, so. I'm hopeful that Recoleta will be able to handle from that side. And then what we saw in Cuenca's 2 home games is they had the 1-0 win over Santos and the 0-0 with San Lorenzo. So it was very tight. And Recoleta have been doing the same, right? They've been tying games. They tied 0-0 with Cuenca in the home one. So you can almost see. I assume Recoleta will go out with the idea to frustrate and to not try and concede, and they've been doing this so well. They've been managing to hold on, and they've been very good on the counterattack. They're playing Olympia right now. We just talked about Olympia. Well, they're playing them right now in the league. Both sides are having this early kickoff to give themselves time next week, and they're playing a fairly strong team, just like Olympia are. So it's not like they're resting everybody and throwing them into the trip to Ecuador. They're trying to do this mix and just keep players rotated and hope that Alan Wilk can keep up his great scoring form and maybe find a goal on the break or something from Aldo Gonzalez, the winger who's been so exciting in these games. So let's see. I mean, you just can't write off Recoleta. That they haven't found the win yet. What a time it would be to find the first win with a late goal on the counterattack in altitude. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, obviously the favorite result has to be a tie because that's what they've been doing the whole time. But I don't know. I think Recoleta might be able to surprise us because they have no pressure in the league. The league is not a pressure situation for them. So they're similar to Olympia. They can go into these Sudamericana games really with, giving it their all and really that's the focus. So they put themselves in this position by not getting beat, and maybe now's the time that they show the spark and they get that win in Ecuador, which would be a huge result.
Yeah, I love Recoleta, guys. I said it from the first day of the competition. This was my team. And in Sudamericana, I'm still gonna root for them. They haven't won a game yet, but they're building up to that. Going up against the strongest team in the group, which was Santos, and they were up to it. I mean, even in Pedro Juan Caballero, where everybody was a Santos fan, they turned out to be the team that scored late and really took that smile off everybody's face, and they were the team that had enough to show to the South American football that they're ready for the competition. And I think this is a team that's been getting ready for this. They did a really good preseason. You see it from players not getting injured. You see it from players being fit, playing every 3 days and not having problems about it. Nobody's complaining. The group is very strong in that locker room, so I'm feeling good about the Recoleta's chances still. If they are able to if they are able to win these last two games, it's not going to be easy in Cuenca. I think even a tie could be a good result also for this Recoleta and try to finish the group against San Lorenzo, which is a team that you were close to beating already in that first game. So I feel good about Recoleta's opportunities. There's a lot of players that can stand out. We saw it against Santos, Cardoso making the difference. Luis Cardoso, very experienced players. Marota, also another one that stood out in the defense. But I want to see the strikers, right? I want to see Alan Wilk. I want to see Parsa Hook. I want to see Baez try to take over in these kind of games. I want to see the more exciting offensive football that this team has yet to show me in the Sudamericana. I usually watch this team in the local league because this is the team that plays pretty football. They always attack. They're always looking to score. And as well as Ameliano, they are probably the two teams that I've enjoyed the most during these first couple of months in the Paraguayan league. So I'm gonna root for Recoleta, guys. I'm with the Canario, and hopefully they can get the result in these two games that they still have ahead of them.
Ralph, do you have any faith in them?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they can snatch something. I wouldn't be surprised if they come away from Ecuador with the win. Like I really think their confidence must have been building over these four games as they see, hey, we can compete, we can do this. So, if anything, this is the game. I think they could spring the surprise.
I think so as well. I think that would be really good for them to get that confidence boost. And yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I think they're gonna snatch something there. It's gonna be tough for them in the last game against San Lorenzo over there in Buenos Aires. But hey, this is a team that has been surprising us all. A team that also has really surprised us in the worst way is Libertad. Libertad, of course, cannot qualify to the round of 16. They could still qualify to the Copa Sudamericana knockout round playoffs, but four losses in a row already. They lost to Rosario Central over there in Rosario. Now they have to head out to Quito, so they have to play in altitude already. And then they finish it off against Universidad Central. I mean, the gap is already 6 points between them and Universidad Central to go to the Sudamericana. I think they're just playing for honor at this point, Fede, honestly. I don't see Libertad having any chance of qualifying.
Yeah, nobody looks motivated in that team right now, right? There's a lot of questions going around if players are even going to make it to the second semester, what kind of team they're going to build. Everybody's talking about the future more than their current status as of right now. Even people leaving that locker room. I'm talking about staff. I'm talking about board members. Everybody's kind of trying to flee away from this team. They're there, and we'll see how they rebuild really. But heading into these last games, I don't see them getting any result really. I mean, they're struggling pretty much in every single game. Thankfully, they've been able to get back Lorenzo Melgarejo, a couple of injured players. They're starting to play a bit more and at the end of the season, but it's too late for them, right? I mean, they really got to think about what's going to happen in the second semester and just maybe snatch a draw and 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 make it hard for the rest of the teams in this group. They're done. They were never up to the Libertadores this year, and it sucks because we usually have Libertad as one of the strongest Paraguayan teams in these kind of competitions, but it was just not up for them. I think their fans are just waiting for this Libertadores to be over and to think only about the Clausura and see if they can get back to the Libertadores next year. They're really on a rebuild kind of year.
Yeah, there's this particular game with the fact that Independiente del Valle have to win as well because it's not like, it's not like they're clearly qualified. It's you have two totally different situations, I think, with in terms of motivation. And Libertad, we just saw last night they tied 0-0 against Dos de Mayo. They're just not really winning games. They're not. They're just going through the motions at this point. I wonder. I mean, maybe we'll never know the answer to this, but what what was the effect of both Roque and Tacuara leaving at the same time for the dressing room in terms of the motivation, these are guys that just turned up every day and demanded the best. And even in a season where you weren't going to win the league, I don't think they would have let standards slip. And Melgarejo, for all his experience, he's never been that kind of player. He's a captain, but he's a captain because he's scoring the most goals, but he's never been that kind of hierarchy that you saw of, players that played in Champions League and at the very top. So I wonder if just the almost like the vacuum of two huge stars leaving at the same time affected them in a way they didn't really forecast. I mean, from the playing side, they haven't lost that much because both guys were starting to get injured and not playing as much towards the end of the year. But just that dressing room mentality. And so you end up having this season because the danger of Paraguay with the short seasons is you can be out of the league very quickly, like Libertad were, and then you're just playing for nothing for about 6 to 8 weeks, which is not good for a professional team because you need to keep that standards. You need to be ready. They got to get ready for the Clausura, and I really can't see at the moment where that's going to come from, how they're going to get up for that game, that next season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for them to really get something in this one, and I think they just need to motivate themselves for next season, see what happens there. So, one team that is still, of course, alive in the Libertadores is Cerro Porteño. They obviously are buoyed from their 1-0 win against Junior, a big win with Bighetti scoring over there in Cartagena. Obviously, this was the game that they needed to win to be able to qualify. Obviously, they are now assured of at least a Copa Sudamericana knockout round playoff spot, but given the fact that it's looking tight between them and Palmeiras, and look who they have to play next. They have to play Palmeiras over there in São Paulo at Alianza Parque. I think this is a game that, again, Palmeiras has always been sort of their kryptonite, and I don't know if they're if Cetera are going to be able to cause an upset there. So I think really it's the game against Cristal where they need to get revenge from what happened in the first day that will allow them to qualify to the round of 16. But I mean, do you see a miracle happening? I'll go to Fede first on this one. Is there any sort of miracle that you'll see in São Paulo this week, or is it just focused on the final game?
My focus is against Sporting Cristal, guys. I don't see how they can do it against Palmeiras, right? I don't see them getting a win. Maybe they can snatch a draw in a bad Palmeiras day, but I don't see them doing it really because they haven't been able to get everybody fit again. Their injury list is still long, and they don't have enough strikers. They don't have enough depth in that roster. They're gonna need to play a couple of young players even again, which is something that Ariel Holland doesn't like. Ever since he took over this team, he's gone with the more experienced players, just like other coaches did before him under Cerro Porteño, and he did it again. And unfortunately, the same path. injured players, players falling out of the team, him not being able to establish a starting 11, and that's been the main issue for this coach, for this coaching staff. So as of right now, I have no idea who's going to play in Cerro Porteño against Palmeiras, and not even against Sporting Cristal, because you don't know who you can rely on really. Even though, it was a very good goal from Begetti against Junior Barranquilla. I want to applaud that one, because that's the kind of plays and goals that we've been waiting for him, right? Important goals in big games. Maybe he can step up in these kind of games against Palmeiras, against Sporting Cristal. But for me, the focus is against Sporting Cristal, guys. That's where the fans need to be in the stands. That's where they need to be pushing this team, because they beat Junior, and that was a huge result for them, because by beating Junior, they don't need to rely on the result against Palmeiras. They can just sit back and wait against Sporting Cristal to get the job done. I don't think they're gonna make it against Palmeiras. I'm never putting my money on this Cerro Porteño. I said it in the first show this year, and I'm still not with this team until they show me enough. So against Palmeiras, I'm not putting my money on Cerro, Raf. Are you putting yours?
No, no, with the Cerro like group games against Palmeiras in Sao Paulo has been they lost 5-0, they lost 2-1, they lost 1-0, and that's all recent years, right? 22, 23, and 25. The last game, the 2025, they only lost 1-0, but I just remember it was like Palmeiras just holding them back and like saying, you guys try and come at us, but nothing's gonna happen. They totally controlled that game. The one thing that Cerro have at their advantage is in the Amazon recently, it was crazy rain. The game against Remo that Palmeiras played, it got like delayed really long and they ended up tying that game. With that in mind, the Flamengo are very close to them, and 3 days after this game, they have to play Flamengo, Palmeiras. So they will have one eye on that because of the Brasileirão, and it's very close. And they got that huge game against Flamengo, which for them, let's be honest, is a bigger game than the one they have against Cerro because they'll feel they can win. So that's the only thing that maybe gives Cerro a chance. And Holland, if he can get things right, to somehow frustrate. But I think just the reality and the quality of the two sides, and especially that this Cerro side is not in its best shape, I just can't see them getting the result. And I would assume the same thing. I think they'll go out in this game trying to steal a point. They probably won't. They won't be able to score. They probably will concede. And so it'll all come down to the Cristal game, because the way the group's set up, even if Cristal win and they lose, a win on the final day puts them back in that second place. So I think we'll see a home win, and then Cerro will have to go in that final game and get something.
I agree. I think that's the situation I'm seeing as well. So basically, it really will go to the final day for a lot of these teams for Paraguay from Paraguay. So I think it's one to watch out for next week when we cover how they got on this coming weekend, and obviously what to look forward to on the final day. What we are also going to be looking forward to is, of course, the Paraguay national team squad for the World Cup. It has been reportedly said that Paraguay have already called up, that Gustavo Alfaro has called up 55 names for the World Cup. Obviously, this is mandatory by FIFA that they have to send 55 names to the World Cup since the beginning of this week, guys. So all the countries have finally submitted it. Some have already done their final 26 names, even some with reserves as well. But I got the list in front of me. It's not been officialized from Paraguay, but it's been mainly highly reported from everyone. So it feels too good to be true. It feels that it's not a false one, but nevertheless, I guess we'll go position by position. It might be easier. So instead of giving you 55 names in a row, the goalkeepers. I mean, I feel like this is the one that is probably the most easiest to decide. It's so the six goalkeepers there: Roberto Fernandez, Carlos Coronel, Orlando Gil, Santiago Rojas, Juan Espinola, and Gaston Olveira. I mean, unless anyone has some sort of disagreement, Fede, Ralph, it's Gil, Gatito, and Olveira going to the World Cup. Going once, going twice. But nevertheless, some
I
names are.
agree.
I mean, it
I
sucks
think
for. I guess the one that sucks is Carlos Coronel. That he started the whole process, the whole thing under a different coach, a different circumstance, and he's going to be the one that's not going to make it.
I wanted to see the American Paraguay story there also, right? Because he has that link because he played a lot in the MLS. He has the Brazilian link also. There was that whole situation with him, but he never fit in that locker room, guys. Unfortunately, I gotta say that about Carlos, right? He never looked like he was on the same page with the defense. He made a couple of mistakes also, I believe, that kind of took him off the team, but he never showed that leadership also that maybe you need or you want from your starting goalkeeper. And then you had Roberto Junior Fernandez, who's friends with pretty much everybody on this team, and he took over. And now it's been Orlando Hill, and we already have Gaston Oliveira. The competition is open. As of right now, I have no idea who's going to start in the World Cup. I don't know if you guys know it.
No, I mean that's a debate for another time. Honestly, let's debate that when we know our three goalkeepers from now. The defenders. I mean, again, these are some of the names that we probably are going to see, but there's some that could sneak their way in because, of course, it depends how many defenders Alfaro will bring. But the defenders: Gustavo Gomez, Junior Alonso, Fabián Valbuena, Omar Lerete, Juan Cáceres, Blas Riveros, Gustavo Velázquez, Alan Benítez, Agustín Sandes, Mateo Gamarra, Saúl Salcedo, José Canale, Diego León, Alexander Maidana, Alcide Benitez, Ronaldo de Jesus, and Alan Nunez. I mean, I'll go to you, Ralph, first on this one. Is there any sleeper pick that you might choose that maybe has a chance on this squad? I mean, I think we know of the first names that I mentioned, the first, I want to say seven names, I guess. Those are the ones that are going to go, but hey, it's still open for maybe one or two spots on that full defense list.
Yeah, there's maybe a couple of spots and there's questions about injuries, right? So I'm thinking particularly like Blas Riveros, who you were kind of assuming wouldn't be in there, but then he's called up, so maybe he's feeling okay if he's back, if he can somehow get some game time, he would have a chance, right? So it's maybe that was the interesting thing for me of this player maybe is not as injured as we thought they might be injured. But honestly, there's not too many surprises. The names are fillers almost for those positions that the central defense, you know what it's going to be. You know who he likes at right back, and it's going to be Juan Cáceres, and then probably Gustavo Velasquez. I don't think we're going to see something crazy, but I think for the players that are the ones, that maybe we're not expecting to be in the 26 to see themselves here as that motivation, right? To then be like, okay, I am being considered. I do have a chance going forward after this. Because what we do have with this defense is everybody's 30 plus. No, well, no, Juan Cáceres. But like you have about five players that are 30 plus. So there's definitely chances for that next generation to get in there.
Yeah, Diego León 19, Maidana 20, Alan Nunez 21, Alcide Benitez 23, Ronaldo Jesus 25. I mean, as much as, Fede, they could be the ones looking themselves out. Maybe there's a surprise out there. I don't know if how you feel, or do you feel that it is really just the old guard or the established guard being the main defensive unit?
Yeah, I get that you say maybe a surprise, but for me, it wouldn't be a surprise really if any of the right backs or the left backs that are on this list can actually make it, because I do think because of the injuries, the spot is open. Alan Benitez got injured in the last game with the national team. He is yet to come back fully to shape. Blas Riveros, we thought he would already be playing by now, and he hasn't come back. So I'm thinking, okay, Alexandro Maidana was already called last time around. Agustin Sanders never really fit that job in the left back. So maybe the opportunity is there for Alexandro Maidana or even for Diego Leon, guys. I mean, we haven't seen much from him
I mean, he's
in the
been
first
playing.
team
I mean,
in Premier League
He's been playing U21s. He's been playing in the U team at least, so that's something.
regularly. And I've been reading his reports, and he's been doing a decent job, I would say, this season. So from the mentality, I've always loved this player. So for me, I would like to see one of these young players make it, because I think they have just the world ahead of them. I don't want them for the next World Cup. They might give us a hand. They might help us out already in this World Cup. I would like for one of the young right back or left back to be on this list, and maybe be one of those surprises because of the injuries mainly.
The only one I can think of, Ralph, of those young core is probably Maidana. That's probably the only one I can think of because it's you think it's crazy. Like him and Leon, they're both left backs, but I think Maidana is the one that's getting more playing time. He's playing more in Talleres than Leon is playing in Manchester United's first team. You feel like I feel like he's the only one of all the defenders of that, that core age group of, basically U25 that is going to go to the World Cup. If it was a spot open for him, of course.
Yeah, he has the most chance, having also been called up to the senior squad, which Leon we haven't seen because he's not playing. And it's a really interesting. I mean, what a wealth of left backs Paraguay has, right? When you think about or coming through, because you think about Leon and Maidana, but also Maidana was really a replacement for Canteros, who's playing in Russia, who's not here on this list, but still, I mean, there's three kind of pretty high quality left backs and in that age range. Yeah, I think if someone like Leon goes in, it would be very much for experience because even though you're playing U21s, it's just not the same. It's not going to be the same like physical demands now of a World Cup. But to go and get the experience, obviously, that's really having that perspective and thinking about the future. And maybe I'm jumping ahead a bit, but that's maybe why you have someone like Enzo Gonzalez on the midfielders list, the same kind of idea, right?
It could be a sparring situation. It could be it could be that case as well. I don't know how many that they need, but I'm sure it's going to be the case of maybe these guys just go because they are valuable for the future. But I think it might be a situation of them going as sparring. So that's my assumption on all this. Look at the midfield. I mean, there are some names that obviously are going to be there, but there are also some names where you think, okay, and we'll talk about the forwards in a bit, but the names that we got: Miguel Miron, Matias Villasanti, Caco Romero, Andres Cubas, Ramon Sosa, Diego Gomez, Damián Bobadilla, Brian Ojeda, Matías Galarza, Robert Pilis da Mota, Álvaro Campuzano, Diego González, Hugo Cuenca, Mauricio, Lucas Romero, Enzo Gonzalez, as you had mentioned, Ralph, and Ruben Lescano make up the midfield. I mean, I guess I'll go to you on that one. Yeah, I mean, this is I think the big one is, of course, that we talked about is just like how much cover do you need? I mean, Andres Cubas really feels as if though he is the guy that's gonna start on that midfield in the as the defensive midfielder, but you do need some cover. I mean, you feel as if though, okay, do we bring enough midfielders to add in more strikers? I mean, we'll talk about the strikers in a bit. And then you have some names in there like Piris da Mota, and I'd love to hear Fede's thoughts on this. Is that not a consideration, but is that sort of the feeling of Alfaro feeling like, hey, maybe we do need more cover than we have because, if one of my guys like Cubas goes down or even Damian Boadilla, I need some of that cover. That's why you have guys like Ojeda, you guys have, and especially that Lucas Romero, who I think had a really good window in the last game, in the last friendlies. I mean, it really feels open, but it also you kind of see what Alfaro is trying to do in terms of picking out a certain position to be the priority, at least in this midfield.
Yeah.
Hope.
No,
Go
go
ahead,
Fed.
Ralph.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I think you need the cover for Cubas, and you don't quite have it without Villasanti. So Villasanti's in that list, but if he's really fit is the other question. And so you have two types of players. You either have Romero, who's a bit more physical but not as technical, or you have maybe Brian Ojeda, who's a bit better at the pressing but is not as physical. And so you don't have the perfect replacement. And he's maybe looking what I think what he'll look for to do is which is the player that can maybe cover me in two positions, not as well to be a starter, but then I have cover if there's that kind of issue with injuries and has to cover someone else. So that's maybe where we're looking at that. I mean, I'll throw over to Fede for the Pirista Mota kind of situation, but he is maybe a player that can do that because I mean, Cerro even put him as centre back at one point, so maybe that's where his name is coming up for.
And he is a fighter, guys. He's one of those players that can get the ball back, right? Which is the best thing that Andres Cubas does and organizes the team close to the defense. Maybe Robert Pires de Mota could be that player. He just hasn't been called up. It's weird from that side because I don't think they've been searching enough for that missing player that they don't have in that squad, right? I mean, let's remember that Lucas Romero wasn't even called up in the first list in these last friendlies. He had to be called up because Andres Cubas dropped out from the list. That was even weirder to me, right? That he wasn't in the radar, that they weren't looking for an alternative for a plan B. So now I think they're looking for a plan B or a plan C. They might even find it with the players that they already have. I mean, we know that Galarza, even Diego Gomez, Damian Bobadilla, they can all be that defensive player in the midfield, also as a center midfielder. But it has to be Andres Cubas and somebody else. I think they're still gonna fight. They're gonna search for that player. Hopefully, Matias Villasanti can come back. Fingers crossed, because when he was at top level, he was one of the best players in this team during the qualifiers. But if the players are not 100%, don't take him to the World Cup. Take somebody else, right? And that could be Robert Pires Damota. That could be Alvaro Campuzano. Maybe a revenge for these guys. Maybe 1 or 2 games at the most in the World Cup is all you might need from them, and they can give you that.
Yeah, I think they do give you that, and it's going to be interesting to see how the balance goes in as we talk with the forwards. So the forwards are, to wrap it all up, Oscar Romero, Ángel Romero, Antonio Sanabria, Julio Enciso, Gabriel Ábalos, Carlos González, Alex Arce, Aran Barreiro, Lorenzo Melgarejo, Isidro Pita, Ronaldo Martínez, Gustavo Caballero, Robert Morales, Adrián Alcaraz, and Rodney Reyes. I mean, it's weird how this shaped up, because obviously when you look at the setup, I'll go to Ralph on this one. The setup of how Paraguay plays is that mostly the wingers, like Almiron, for example, like he's gonna play. He would be more considered a forward if he's a winger playing in that role. So you technically have to label him as a forward. But nevertheless, I think when you look at it, I mean, obviously the big names like Julio Enciso and Sanabria are gonna be there for sure. It's just filling out the rest. I mean, as we've seen in the last month and a half or so, it's been a debate about just the strikers. We've seen that with Gabriel Avalos. We've been seeing that with what's his name? And Adam Barreiro, who unfortunately suffered an injury a couple days ago. So we have to see how fit he is. Alex Arce scoring. Carlos Gonzalez, both top goal scorers in the Copa Libertadores so far, guys. The two top goal scorers in the Libertadores are both Paraguayan. Obviously, Stupita scoring at Red Bull Bragantino. The Romero brothers just scored, both of them, the other day against between Boca and Huracan in the game that Barreiro was injured. Ronaldo Martinez, as you know, is doing stuff at Talleres. Gustavo Caballero, as we know, he scored the last Paraguay goal in the friendlies. Morales is scoring. So you get what I'm saying here. There is going to be that debate. But the question is not just who is going to be there, but how many strikers are you going to bring to the final 26?
Yeah, I think that's maybe the point because all the players you're mentioning are all playing in a fairly similar level, and there's not a huge amount between them. There's not like oh, we must take, like we must take Oscar Romero because he's got to go. Not really, right? I mean, everyone's at a very similar level there. The one player that's probably at a higher level that isn't scoring is Tony Sanabria, which is the conundrum at
It's
the moment.
crazy, isn't he? He might be the starter, and he's the one that's not scoring. I think Fede shaking his head. I can't wait to hear his thoughts. But like the one guy, like everyone's busting their ass to score goals just to even make the squad, and you have one guy. Well, credit to Sanabria. I mean, obviously he scored the important goals, and he has all his credit. But and he scored, one of the last friendlies. I think it was against Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. But nevertheless, he's not scoring for Cremonese. That's not the form you want to go into at the World Cup. Whereas the other guys, they're doing it, but there's the base like, I don't know if they could start because, of course, we've seen them how they do on the national team, and it's not been to the extent. So anyway, I didn't want to interrupt Ralph, but you get what I'm saying.
No,
It
but
really is that frustration for some.
yeah, that's definitely the conundrum at the moment, right? Is do we go for class over form or form over class and yeah, that kind of thing. But the big question is, right, how many of those other strikers do we take to be the replacements for Sanabria, knowing that I don't think Tony Sanabria will play 90 minutes much at the World Cup. I'm imagining him starting. If he doesn't score in 60 minutes, then it's time for somebody else, especially depending on where the game is, especially if it's like we just need someone to now like run the channels and hold the ball up. And we're not going to have much of the ball, but we need somebody to do the work up front, like the off the ball work. And so then it's like, how many of the Avalos and Pita and Alan Barreiros, how many do we need for that? Is it just two more? Or do I need to take three more? And then if I do that, then obviously I'm going to lose one of the wingers for just because of space. So that's the big question. And so it's between, I mean, I don't think Adam Barredo's in because of anyway now because of the injury. So it's like, for me, it's like probably what Arce, Avalos, and Sanabria. And then is it that one more or not that one more? Do you see where I'm going with this with Alfaro? And so maybe that's the big question because by taking that extra one, which could be say Peter,
Yeah.
then I have to drop a winger. So that's the big question mark at the moment for me.
Or maybe they drop a midfielder. That could happen as well. I mean, that would be a bit that's a more of a different scenario, Fede, but that's what we're facing basically. I'm glad we're not Alfaro. We're not being paid the bucks to not only pick the national team squad for the lineups and all, but also just to who's gonna go to the World Cup. No.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna take any wingers out of this list, right? Especially even with Gustavo Caballero, one of the last ones that came in. Maybe he might take one of the midfielders, like you guys said. I mean, I don't know, guys. I love him, but Alejandro Romero Gamarra, I don't know if he has a spot with Mauricio now in there, right? Especially if you're gonna think about taking another forward, like Ralph said, if you want to take four, because I don't know if you can rely on Tony Sanabria, especially playing 90 minutes. And if you need to go all out in a game to try to win it or at least tie it late on, you might need to put on two center forwards and just start putting the ball up there, you know. And in that sense, we have several of those players that can make the difference late on in the games. I love what Avalos can bring to the team. I love what Isidro Pita can do, fighting the balls. Even I don't take him out of this list, guys. I mean, he hasn't been there lately, but Carlos Gonzalez, I mean, he's been scoring also for Independiente del Valle. I mean, I don't know if one of these names can make it late, especially now that Alan Barreiro kind of dropped out because of the injury. He's barely going to make it if he makes it to the World Cup. I think all these opportunities are on the table for Alfaro, and he needs to make up his mind if he's going to take three or four. I already have my four. If I have to take the forwards, I am already trying to make up my mind in the midfield also because you can only take 26 guys. Unfortunately, if you're Alfaro, this is the moment where you're picking up the phone and telling the guys, I'm sorry, but I cannot make a spot for you.
So wait, who are your four then? If you said you have four, who are your so you are going for four strikers. That's your vibe.
Yeah, because I do think you need to go all out in certain games, and you might need to put a couple of forwards in there. This is Paraguay. We're gonna defend most of the time, but if you're up against the ropes and you need to get something out of the game, you're gonna need to put forwards in there. So I'm taking Tony Sanabria. I'm taking Gabriel Avalos. I'm taking Isidro Pita, and I'm taking Carlos Gonzalez. Which if I'm taking all the fighters up there, I'm taking all the big guys.
Wow. Wow, Carlos Gonzalez making it in instead of I forgot who'd you take? No, Alex Arce
No,
then,
Alex
basically.
Arce has been there pretty much all the time, but he hasn't convinced me.
All right. I mean, Ralph, right as of now, I mean, my if it was up to me, I think I'd I mean, it's hard to me. I think I would choose Sanabria, Avalos, Arce, and Pita. So I think I would go for four strikers on that end. As of now, of course.
Yeah,
It's so hard to leave someone out, Ralph.
well,
Yeah.
I think I get the same with Roberto, but it's the Isidro Pita thing is hard for me because maybe I'm romantically remembering how well he played against Brazil, which he did,
Yeah.
and then like forgetting when he didn't play so well, and then he came into form, but actually that form is now just like drying up just as we get to the World Cup. So it's Peter's the one. He's the hardest one for me. I'd still take Arce. I think I like that Alex Arce can do a little bit more than Avalos in the running the channels, but he can't do as he's nowhere near as good holding up. I mean, I think at the moment I'm like Sanabria Avalos is my switch each game, right? I'm
Mhm.
probably that's the sub because like I say, I don't see Sanabria playing 90 minutes. He's rarely playing 90 minutes at Cremonense. Especially now with Vardy's just come back in. So eh, I can't see him being able to give it all 90 minutes like every few days in the heat of California as well. I mean, there's so many things, there's so many factors that make me think we're gonna see Sanabria for parts of each game, but not the whole game. So you're gonna have to have these subs, and probably it'll be Avalos would be my number one or my number two, I guess is the right way to call it. But I go with you, Roberto. Arce and Pita are the more likely extra candidates for me.
It's gonna be fun. I'm sure everyone's making their final 26 squads as we speak, and I'm sure we probably should do that right before the announcement, of course, of the World Cup. And yeah, it's gonna be really a fun debate for this time out. I'm excited as much as I was, kind of dreading against the World Cup because of everything that's been going on. But now that we're getting close to it, it's like, okay, now it's getting real. But it's still gonna be a head scratcher for a lot of these guys about who's going to go on that final squad. But we'll obviously discuss it as we always do here as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.